If you're new to the custom keyboard rabbit hole and want a custom keyboard, there are a lot of options, but most of them are out of stock, or half a year away. But you can customize your keyboard and not worry about compatibility because you can buy it all from the same site. The GMMK Pro keyboard, switches, keycaps, coiled cables, and even the knob. And I know there are others out there, but for ease of mind, it is one place for warranty and it shows in order what parts you'd need and what's already included. But before you think of configuring one yourself, what's the GMMK Pro like? I've had the GMMK Pro for about a year, and the board is made out of a CNC'd aluminum gasket mount case. What's a gasket mount? Well, a traditional keyboard is mounted with a PCB screwed directly into the bottom of the case. Gasket mount, on the other hand, is where the PCB rests on the gasket lining on the bottom of the case instead, and then the front plate sits on top to secure it in place. This is supposed to do two things. First is to allow the PCB to move, acting like a spring or cushion when typing. Second is to create a more consistent typing experience. But the GMMK Pro only does the second well. This doesn't make it bad, but it doesn't do what enthusiasts in the keyboard space would expect. The PCB features a hot swap capability for easy switch installation and removal. The knob is stepped and set to mute on default. And the 75% layout is great to start with because this retains as many keys as possible while creating more mouse space for gaming. While this is meant to be a gaming keyboard, how does it feel when typing without that cushioning effect? I have used it with both the glorious Pandas and Link switches, and some others. Using the Pandas, the keyboard didn't really feel too stiff as the very tactile bump is much more noticeable than the bottom out, and I type with an above moderate amount of force. When typing with the Link switches on the other hand, it gave a very unpleasant experience when bottoming out, just like I did yo. As for consistency, while the keyboard itself is stiff, it feels a little softer in the center. Putting a desk mat underneath the GMMK Pro is a better experience as I felt less of the force being bounced back by the table. So if you are a heavy typist, I would suggest getting 70+ gram switches instead for cushioning. With the Panda switches, the board sounds unexpectedly louder, but really poppy. The Links on the other hand have a much sharper and higher pitched sound. I'll have the sound test at the end of the video. And if you want to try other switches, the GMMK Pro supports both 3-pin and 5-pin switches, so no extra work required. In gaming, the solid feel actually helps create a good springback return, making the GMMK Pro feel very responsive in the hand. I prefer the Pandas in gaming as I can preload or lean on the switch a little before activating the key. The Links are smooth, but lighter than what I'm used to. But that's me personally. And note, neither are lube. If you are just getting into mechanical keyboards, lubing is not a great introduction. Otherwise, film it, lube it, and enjoy. The GMMK Pro by default has a 1000Hz polling rate, but the input latency is set to 16 milliseconds, which is adjustable. But why is it set at 16 milliseconds? That's to decrease the chance of double-clicking due to debounce, a topic for another video. Setting input latency to 2 milliseconds, the increased responsiveness is noticeable. And so far, I've had a double-clicking issue with only one switch. Swapping it out, remove that issue. Another thing you may have an issue with is sound. So here's the sound test. Personally, while I find the sound very enjoyable, I prefer silent switches, mostly because I don't want to clutter game sound or music with the popping of a keyboard. If you are curious about having a silent keyboard, do check out this video, and make sure to subscribe, like the video, and have a nice one. Also, I prefer tactiles.